I played 100% of Waxheads, a cozy punk narrative sim about working in a struggling record store. There were wacky characters, unique music choices, a secret club, family drama, wholesome moments, and the ever-growing dread that we're all about to be taken over by greedy capitalist AI overlords. Also, legally distinct Tamagotchi. There will be story and gameplay spoilers in this video, as well as slight music spoilers. If you want to hear any of the songs with lyrics and vocals and experience the wide breadth of genres that the music encompasses in this game, you should play the game to hear it for yourself. Again, you have been warned, there will be spoilers. I played my first run of the game in no refunds mode, which is basically the standard gameplay mode. You recommend music to customers, and if your recommendation falls flat, so be it. You aren't able to fix your mistakes. I also initially started playing with a controller, but I eventually switched to using my mouse, which I'll explain later. Before I could even step into the store, I was met with a quick lore dump via Monster Music TV, hosted by Clive Roderson. He told viewers the story of the famed 80s pop band Becoming Violet, and how they were torn apart by scandal at the height of their success. The band included a pair of sisters, Morgan and Willow McIntyre, who became permanently estranged when younger sister Willow set out on a solo career, and took older sister Morgan's childhood sweetheart, James Grant, along with her. Willow's career flourished, while Morgan disappeared from the public eye. As my first day as the newest employee at Repeater Records began, I was greeted by a familiar face, Morgan McIntyre, Repeater's owner. She introduced me to the store's staff room, which contained a beverage alleged to be coffee. Next, she showed me the store's cash register, which would be my main responsibility. According to the employee handbook, I was to listen to a customer's needs, then search through the store to pick out the perfect record for them. I would then ring up their purchase at the till, and with any luck, my customer would love what I had chosen for them. I also had access to a work phone, which featured several apps, including Phonogram, a music-themed social media site. This would be a good way to keep my finger on the pulse of what was currently down with the kids, as they say. I opened up the shop, and I was immediately greeted with my first customer, the Mimi superfan. She was very excited about the new Mimi album, Still Mimi, which made for a quick and easy first sale. It also made for a quick and easy first achievement, as I picked up The First Cut is the Deepest, Make Your First Sale. 1 down, 27 more to go. Then came more customers. Tony, cheapskate, demanded a copy of whatever our cheapest record was. It turned out to be Let's Fuzz by Untitled Grass, on sale for the low price of $13.99. Next I met Alexis, who was decked out in Bad Toes merch. With the sheet music clenched in his hands and a flyer for choir practice sticking out of his pocket, told me he was a bit deeper than that. Those cues, combined with his request for something harmonious, led me to correctly recommend him an album by the Secret Male Choir Club. And then Winston asked for help finding a jazz record that his late husband had loved. I struggled with the twin in the demo, which broke my heart a little, but thankfully I figured out all the clues this time, and I successfully brought Winston a copy of Peep by Roland Tipsy. That's a great name, by the way. My next customer, Hank, was in fact not a customer at all, but a co-worker that I hadn't met yet. It was his day off, but he'd popped in to use the store's photocopier to print flyers for his band's upcoming show. Except, he didn't actually have a flyer made up, so he asked me to design it. I did my best, but this was the first point in the game where I started seriously considering switching over to using my mouse. I'm typically more of a controller person, but doing certain things in this game with my old, no-name Xbox controller made things a little, janky? The jank on my poster didn't matter though, as I got my second achievement. Poster child, make a poster for Hank. Then I was back to the grind. Kelly needed a birthday present for her twin sister, and was looking for a sister album with a rain cloud on it. I remembered from the demo that part of examining the store's albums involved looking at the actual physical records, and for some reason I hadn't been able to figure out how to do that on a controller. So this is where I officially switched over to using my mouse, and yeah, things started running a lot more smoothly after that. I found Kelly her record, and promptly picked up my third achievement, Nothing But the Best, for trading 5 correct recommendations. And that wrapped up my first day at Repeater Wait, who's this breaking into our staff room? Thomas, the talent manager, had forced his way in and was demanding that his client be allowed to speak with us. And his client was none other than Willow McIntyre, Morgan's long-estranged younger sister. And she just wanted to tell Morgan that she was in town? Ma'am, this break-in could have been an email. Morgan asked me to please not share this interaction with the other staff, as she found it to be a delicate matter and she didn't want it spread around. Day 2 started with another achievement, Open Your Heart, open up Repeater Records. I then met 2 more of my co-workers, Abby and T. Abby does promotion on the side for her friend's punk band, Girl Junk, while T mixes songs for other artists from the comfort of her home. They filled me in on another app on my phone, Walking the Cow, a daily newsletter all about music, and then spilled the beans that Hank's band, Dunnies, had been booked for a gig by someone named Pat. Abby had me tidy up the staff room notice board before we opened the store, and I checked out Walking the Cow as instructed. And then it was right back to it. I talked to Billy, who told me that Hank told me he'd keep a copy aside for me, and I'm with the band. A copy of what? And what band? I had no idea, but he mentioned there would be a note somewhere. After a surprisingly small amount of searching, I found it. It was the Bad Toes record. Why the note was inside the album, I don't know, but whatever. Next, I talked to newly minted teenager Chloe, who had just turned 13 and wanted to pick an album out all by herself. She asked for the newest release from Sister, but some quick research had me recommending their debut album instead. Always good to start at the beginning. Also, Chloe does not understand how vinyl works. Then I had to decipher a garbled album request from Kaz, a delivery man, put up with some kid named Lewis calling me a corporate drone repeatedly, and deal with a snooty mother named Clarissa, who was insistent that I sell her a record that she liked for her daughter's 16th birthday. She absolutely did not want me to sell her any music by the person who sings Unstoppable. Mimi sings Unstoppable. So I sold Clarissa the new Mimi album. You're welcome. And that wrapped up day 2. Before day 3 could begin, we had to check in with Clive over at Monster Music TV. Tonight, he was interviewing Gareth Bringle, a singer of popular band Brick Dog. Gareth had gone solo and was trying to discuss his new album, but Clive and the audience were far too distraught over the breakup of Brick Dog to talk about anything else. Back at the shop, I was introduced to 2 more co-workers, Paul and Mateo. Paul tells me that he's stuck working a corporate job most of the time, so outside of that, he likes being heavily involved in the local community, including working at Repeater and helping with a club called Too Bright that's down the street. Mateo stumbles in a little late, and I learn that he's a bit of a partier who doesn't make sleep much of a priority. Man, it's been a long time since I could say that about myself. Anyways, I learned from both Phonogram and Walking the Cow that the end of Brick Dog is all anyone can talk about, and that the remaining members of Brick Dog have formed a new supergroup called Bricked Ego, alongside singer Robbie Dare from the band Ego Sunny Side Up. I also learned that both Bricked Ego's debut album and Gareth Gringle's debut solo album are, quote, stealth dropping today. It's gonna be a long day, huh? Sure enough, my first customer of the day is Craig, the doting boyfriend. He's babysitting his boyfriend's 3 adorable puppies, who are named after the 3 remaining members of Brick Dog, Andres, Zachy, and Bruce. I can only hope there wasn't a 4th dog named Gareth, because if so, where is it now? Anyways, Craig is here to pick up the Bricked Ego album for his boyfriend, so I grab it for him and send him and his charges on their way. Next was... what the fuck? So, yeah, this is Mascot Dad, and with some prompting, his mascot daughter let me know that he was looking for today's other stealth drop, the Gareth Gringle album. Please, take it and leave. Dear God. But hey, at least that nightmare fuel got me my 5th achievement. I achieved push the button, used all the cash register icons, while I was bedazzling Potato Head's receipt. My next customer was Lawrence, who was... naked? How did he get in here? How did he even get out in public? Anyways, he hates Gareth, loves Brick Dog. Here's the Bricked Ego album, please go put some pants on. I was then introduced to the smarmy Chip Lennington, this area's local MP or Member of Parliament. He asked for a record that, essentially, he wants to use to increase his appeal with voters. I gave him the Gringle album, and he seems to like it. And he dips out. And it's a good thing, too, because Paul apparently hates him. My next customer is Patrie, who is quiet. Very quiet. Her outfit isn't, though, and she was very happy with her copy of the Bricked Ego album. Back in the staff room, we discuss the busy day, and Paul and Mateo talk about how the neighborhood is changing, but not for the better. Paul points out that we'll just need to work on preserving the things that we love about it, and we end the day on a bittersweet note. Starting off day 4, Paul shows me the neighborhood zine he makes, highlighting various parts of our eclectic community and the various projects happening in and around it. I feel this comic in my soul. Next, Hank arrives, and he is, panicking. His band's big show at the Alphabet is tonight, and the anxiety is real. Paul and I do our best to cheer him up, when suddenly... oh, brother, it's this guy again. Thomas, the talent manager, asks after Morgan, while trying to be coy about who he represents, even though Paul clocks it right away. Thomas tells us that Willow wants to buy the store, which absolutely disgusts Paul. We come to find out that Hank sorta kinda knew that Repeater Records sorta kinda might be in some financial trouble, because he knew that Willow had previously stopped by, but he'd kept it quiet at Morgan's behest just like we had. While Hank and Paul went to hash things out a bit further in the front, I decided to putz around for a bit, checking out the jukebox and ordering some things for the store, which got me the You Decorated My Life achievement for ordering from the Wild Kindness catalog. And then I played a quick tune on the ukulele, netting me the Over the Rainbow achievement. Back out in the store, Hank filled me in a little more about the sisterly estrangement of Morgan and Willow, and let me know that as a result, Repeater Records does not stock Willow albums. You think they might have told me that on day 1, but anyways. My first customer of the day was Sean. He tells me that he travels a lot and he likes to check out the local record stores, buying an album from a local band at each place as a souvenir. He asks me for something that fits that bill, and what do you know, we still have the Bad Toes record in stock. You're welcome, I think. Customer number 2 was Jazz, who looks oddly familiar. Jazz keeps insisting that she's here to perform, and though I try to stop her,
Unstoppable. Unstoppable, invincible, undefeatable. Unstoppable.
Mercifully, Paul shuts Jazz down and has Hank kick her out, which, for the record, I gladly would have done that myself had I been given the option. My next customer was Rod, an older gentleman with an interesting button on his vest reading Wax Pack. Rod lets me know that the Wax Pack is a private group of record collectors, and that when I see a Wax Pack badge, there's, quote, shenanigans at play. Rod lets me know that he's looking for the one and only album from Robbie Dare's first band, and mentions that someone named Priya left a note for him inside the record. I hunt around, track down the album, and sure enough, there's a note inside, with the title of Wax Pack Room and a code on it. A heart, 3 cats, and another heart. I sell Rod his album, making sure to print the code on his receipt. Rod is happy to see that I found it, and he rewards me with another code. Vampire, Witch, Ghost. He tells me I'll need to figure out the next step if I want to learn more about the Wax Pack. After that slightly exhausting but very intriguing interaction, I have an exhausting encounter of a different sort. Rita Butterfly is looking for a Willow album. Oh. Paul and Hank swoop in to give me a hand, letting Rita know that we don't carry any Willow or Becoming Violet albums. Rita is not pleased. Thankfully, Rita is followed up by Allie, a quiet girl who has a big problem. There's a really cute girl behind her, and she's freaking out. She needs my help to figure out which album to buy in order to impress said really cute girl. She decides to try to figure out what band the girl is into by basically squinting at her from the side to check out her t-shirt so as not to arouse suspicion. She tells me that the really cute girl's shirt has a brick pattern and 4 legs on it. Is that enough to go on? Yeah. Allie asked me for one more favor. To slip the really cute girl her phone number, because she's too shy to do it herself. It's a good thing this is just a video game because, miss, I can't even slip somebody my phone number for my own self, okay? I am the wrong person to ask. Anyways, the really cute girl approaches the cash, and it's Patry from yesterday. And she is very uncomfortable with me giving her what she thinks is my phone number. She does not want it.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
I clarify that it's from the girl that was in line ahead of her, not from me. She likes that a lot better.
You just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Patry gets flustered and says that she needs a record for her dad, but she doesn't know what it's called. She just knows that a really gross writer likes it, and that said writer hates all the bands she likes. I check over a Walking the Cow and see that the most recent article is by one Harvey Kemp, who was openly bashing the new Bricked Ego album. I think we found our writer. I have to search for a little bit, but I eventually find our target. Let's Fuzz by Untitled Grass. Harvey gives it 2 thrusts. Ew. Patry isn't thrilled about the album choice, but she is thrilled about the phone number, so off she goes. While I was searching for the record for Allie, I accidentally clicked into the storage room, which, lo and behold, featured a combination lock with spooky characters rather than numbers. Vampire, Witch, Ghost. I enter the room to find a TV playing static and a VHS tape asking to be put into the VCR. I play the tape and clip of a small indie band show play. The video is very much bootleg quality and I can't decipher the band name on the drumhead. I poke around the room a bit more, but the only other clues I find are 4 locked boxes on a shelf, each separately branded with a bottle of milk, a cottage, a theatrical mask, and a pair of slippers. Okay. Well, one mystery solved, plenty more to go. At the end of the day, Paul and Hank are back to squabbling about Morgan. And then Morgan walks in. They confront her about Willow wanting to buy the store, and Morgan seems equal parts confused and yet unbothered. This doesn't exactly calm anyone's nerves, but hey, we gotta get to Hank's show! Over at the Alphabet, I meet Pat, the venue's owner. He also happens to be the former drummer from Morgan's old band, Becoming Violet, although it seems that means nothing to me. Hank is suddenly struck by pre-show nerves and he runs off to use the bathroom. He's quickly replaced by Abby, who's panicking and telling everyone that Repeater Records is going to close, because Paul is telling everybody to find a new job before it's too late. What the hell, Paul? Mateo comes over and is equally freaked out, so Pat encourages us to hit the bar. I meet Hank at the bar and he tells me that he needs something to calm his nerves, but he has a policy of not drinking before a show. He mentions that he wishes there was a way to trick his brain into thinking he was drinking a beer without actually drinking a beer. And then he asks me to find him a solution somehow. I poke around the bar's selection for a bit. Apparently you don't need to work here, you can just step behind the bar and do that. And eventually I find it. The Cant. An IPA with a foil seal over the glass that you're supposed to wait 10 minutes before removing. I bring Hank the drink and explain the concept, and he thinks that's just great. It calms his nerves and he heads back to get ready for the show. I return to the lounge area where Pat and Paul are confronting Morgan about Repeater Records apparently closing, which Morgan insists isn't happening. In fact, she yells it out to the entire place to make herself clear. And then Abby points out that Hank's band is already on stage. And with that, ending, I picked up another achievement. Another day in paradise, complete side A. It's the beginning of day 5, and it's time for another visit with Clive. This time, he's interviewing Linny Hurst, a journalist and the head editor of Walking the Cow. They're discussing what Clive calls, quote, big goings-on in the underground electronic scene. A pair of rising stars named Shy Robot and Claudia, both of whom keep their identities hidden from the public. Linny states that the rumors of the two artists being the same person have been proven false, and she's been able to verify that Shy Robot is a young man who is, quote, at an age where his identity is being protected, implying that the musician is under 18. Linny isn't able to share much more than that, much to Clive's chagrin, and so we carry on. We pick up outside Repeater Records, where we have new shutter graffiti. Neat! In the staff room, Mateo, T, and I discuss the disastrous end to Hank's brief gig, and also the fact that the store may or may not be closing, depending on who you ask. In better news, Repeater Records now has a newly renovated second floor. Mateo reminds me to check it out before we open, so I do. The new area features some cool new art and fashion displays, and of course, more records to flip through. My first customer of the day is Theo, the gamer guy. He tells me that he's into the Ponko game series, and that a friend told him there's a rapper out there who put a cheat code for the game Legend of Ponko somewhere on their album cover. It takes me a minute, but I find it. It's the Nia Pixel album, where she's got the cheat code tattooed right on the back of her neck. I sell it to Theo, and all is right with the world. Gaz the delivery man is back again, with another garbled request from his cousin. This time he's looking for a band whose name is a sound you make, and one of the songs is allegedly called Smells Delish. This one actually takes me a bit, but I finally settle on the band Snarl, and I determine that the song said to be called Smells Delish is actually called Hellfish, which, yeah, I don't think that would smell very delish at all. I have another repeat customer right away, with sweet old Winston stopping by again. This time he's looking for a record for his grandson, by an artist named Reggie Xavier. I'm fairly certain we do stock him, just not under that name. I double check on Phonogram, and sure enough, there's a post revealing that the rapper known as RXX is in fact Reggie Xavier. I sell the album to Winston, and he again leaves the store happy. My next customer is an alarming looking guy named Dennis, who is a major super duper fan of the band Jarhead. The members of Jarhead have just been arrested on the suspicion of murdering their singer and keeping his head in a jar. Yeah. Anyways, Dennis is convinced that the band has been framed, and that they have left, quote, a confession of truth on one of their albums, quote, just for him. He just doesn't know what album it's on. Okay. After some uncomfortable digging, I discovered that there's a song on Jarhead's newest album, Pit, called Confessions in the Bloated Bell Jar, referencing their very first album, called, of course, The Bloated Bell Jar. So I sell that album to Dennis, and he's, thrilled? Cheapskate Tony is back again too, this time demanding that I sell him the biggest bargain from our, quote, new stock. And this is where I have my first real screw-up. Tony had specifically referenced the stock on our newly opened second floor, but the cheapest record we had there was only $4 off, which seemed like an awfully low discount to offer to a cheapskate. Meanwhile, the new Gareth Kringle album was on sale for $10 off. I assumed, since this was both the bigger deal and it was still a new album, it just came out last week for crying out loud, that this would be a good compromise. It was not. Tony was terribly disappointed in me, and I got my first meh reaction of the game. Day 6 was a wet and dreary one that made the shutter handle slippery, apparently. We check in with Hank, who is feeling so good that he doesn't care that it's miserable outside. He tells us that he's working on booking more gigs for Denise because he wants to keep jamming. He's even feeling so good that he fills us in on how he first started working at Repeater. He first met Morgan when they were set up on a date, which leads Abby to hit him with this singer. Hank clarifies that neither of them were actually looking to date at the time, but they became friends, and then he started working at Repeater. Abby also asks why Hank keeps going with his band at his age, knowing that they won't really get anywhere. Ouch! Hank says that the only person who can decide to stop him is him, and he doesn't want to. Nice! Before we get started, Hank asked me to organize our new promo stand of music accessories. Whee! Puzzle time! After that, I did a bit more shopping for the store, unlocking another achievement. Can't Buy Me Love, buy 10 wild kindness items. My first customer of the day was a pathetically soaked woman named Summer. She had to walk 2 miles in the rain because someone stole her bike, and now she was looking for a record that would cheer her up. I ultimately picked Campsite by Pink Square, thinking it sounded rather cheery. Summer was not a fan. Was it because of her name? Next up was May, who was absolutely thrilled with the terrible weather, saying it made her want to party and dance the night away. So yeah, she was the target audience for Campsite, apparently. Billy, the wet version, was next. He was also Billy the mad version, since his band, Bad Toes, was no longer on the featured album shelf. I didn't get a chance to respond to him though, as he said he'd yell at Hank Letter instead. Then he asked for a record that would inspire him, as he felt his creative juices were running low. He said he wanted something unapologetically thumpingly loud. I tried handing him one of the Snow records, and thankfully he loved it. We took a quick break to gossip about the Jarhead story, only to be interrupted by a greasy-looking man by the name of Dan Luffy, who was apparently Repeater Records' landlord. Ew! Dan was there to gloat, apparently, about the idea that Willow would be buying the store. He claimed that Morgan owes him rent in perpetuity, and that Willow buying the store would stop him from losing money. After he leaves, Hag manages to talk me and Abby down, insisting that Dan just, quote, loves theatrics, and we still have jobs to do and customers to serve. And speaking of customers, my next one had arrived. Steven, the tired dad, accompanied by his screaming children, Kid A and Kid B. Once the kids get distracted by our arcade game in the back, Steven asked me to find him a record that's just for him. I take his overburdened arms as a clue. Just for him means no camping album, no Mimi, nothing related to bricks or eggs, and it's probably a good idea to stay away from jars too. After some searching, I realized that the Gecko Jester album might be perfect. It contains such relatable gems as Disappointment, Dad Sent a Letter, Burnt, Let's Not Talk About Family, and of course, Driven to Therapy. And it turns out I was correct. Steven was already a fan, and he was even wearing a Gecko Jester jacket. Somewhere. Under all the kid stuff. My final customer of the day kept both her identity and her desires a mystery, simply asking me repeatedly for it. Of course, I had just seen her post on Phonogram talking about the new Mimi record, so here you go. Day 7 opens with Hank asking my advice on how to approach Morgan regarding yesterday's landlord visit. Before I can answer, Morgan arrives, and Hank panics and tries to distract us with the newest edition of the Shrub Sounds zine. It kinda works. Before heading out onto the floor, I take a look at the newest post on Walking the Cow, interviewing electronic artist Roberta D about her upcoming quadruple album release, Doomsday Hero. This is an album that she will be simultaneously releasing 4 different versions of, and the only difference is that each version has one different song than the other 3. It's definitely not a marketing ploy or a cash grab though. Honest. And on the floor, today's first customer is Chloe, who has clearly gone from a music newbie to a true Blue Sister fan. She tells me that she wants to hear more bands full of girl power, but her older brother, Marco, insists that she should try getting into rap music. Chloe does not at all seem impressed by this, unless perhaps there was a rap album that contains girl power? I hand over the Nia Pixel album, which blows Chloe's mind, and Marco gives his quiet approval, offering to listen to it with her. Chloe is super excited, and is still super confused by Vinyl Records. Next I meet Gordy, who is looking for some punk music with big bass riffs to use as references for his songwriting. After some searching, I settle on Sister's Snake album, which thankfully, Gordy is excited about. Then I'm visited by a pair of aging, slightly hard of hearing metalheads named Lynn and Roy. They're a little confused, but they're each looking for one album, and neither of them remembers what either of them is called. Ultimately, they tell me they had seen a few album reviews by someone they call Kevin, and they know that one of the records they want was Kevin's #1 pick in some sort of magazine, while the other was given 2 quote-unquote good fingers by Kevin, as opposed to, 2 bad fingers. I quickly figure out 2 things. 1, Kevin's name is actually Calvin Sanchez, and 2, the album that Calvin gave 2 good fingers to is the reissue of Shatterfist's self-titled album. Unfortunately, I cannot for the life of me figure out what album was Calvin's top pick in a magazine, so I settle on Jarhead's Pucker. This earns me an okay rating from the 2 men, which was a little bit disappointing. Next in line is Priya from the Wax Pack. She's the one who left a note for Rod back during my first Wax Pack encounter. Priya tells me that she's really into collecting TV and film soundtracks, and today she's looking for the music from a documentary about exorbitant rental prices. She also mentions that, like in my exchange with Rod, there should be a note for her in the album she's looking for. I find the record, Rearview Collapse by Dirt, and sure enough there's a note inside. I have no idea what it means though, so I naively assume the point of the note will be made clear to me later. Priya pays for her purchases, thanks me, and says nothing about the note. Then I meet Darren, who tells me he's been going through a breakup, and the album he's looking for has been a lifeline for him. He then mentions that he refuses to believe that, quote, she didn't write it herself. I recognize this as a reference to the latest Mimi album, Mecha Mimi Meets Mother, say that 5 times fast, which has recently been mired in controversy as rumors swirl that the album was ghostwritten. I am correct, and Darren leaves satisfied. Just as we're about to wrap up the day on a positive note, we are rudely interrupted by Dan the landlord again. Ew! Worse yet, he jump scares us with an appearance by James Grant, Morgan's ex, Willow's husband, and the other half of the dastardly duo trying to buy out our store. James claims he's just here to talk, but Morgan reminds him that Willow had already come by to talk. information that seems to catch James off guard. Then Dan pokes his greasy nose back into the conversation, announcing that because of all the renovations happening at Repeater, he's raising the rent again. He shares that the higher rent means that the finance plan he'd previously worked out with Morgan no longer applies. Then he gives Repeater 3 months to pay off all the renovation costs, or else he's selling the property to James. Dan then leaves, but James doesn't, choosing instead to continue hanging around and being a dick. This leads Morgan, Hank, and myself to kick his smarmy ass out of the store. Yeah, we're closed, buddy. Back in the staff room, Hank confronts Morgan about what just happened, pointing out that back at Hank's show, she insisted there was nothing to worry about. Morgan keeps deflecting, and Hank gets frustrated and storms out. Morgan continues to reassure me that everything will be fine, but I don't know if she believes it. Before we get into our 8th day at Repeater Records, we're treated to another show with Clive, and he's interviewing James. Why though? James is on the show to promote his slimy AI slot music streaming service, Press Play. He claims that the service will be free for both users and artists, except that users will have to sign a contract that includes a, quote, nominal transaction fee, and artists will have already had all their work stolen and cataloged by the AI. I hate this timeline. Day 8 begins with Morgan asking Mateo and myself if the new second floor of the store has been worth it. All this really does is reveal that everybody's still stressed as fuck, so we stop talking and head out to open the store. I do a little bit of shopping before I leave the staff room though. Before we officially open up, I pop over to the Diggy Doggo arcade cabinet to give the game a try. I am really bad at it. I start the day greeted by Allie and Patry, who are now officially a couple. They're freaking adorable, and they're looking for a record to buy together, as a way to symbolize their love. Patry already has all of the Brick Dog related albums, so Allie suggests she tries getting into rap, specifically RXX. Patry was hoping for something a little more romantic, though. Luckily enough for her, and Allie, we just got the new Minnie and Minx album in, released just after the pair publicly confirmed their romantic relationship. Before I hand it over, though, I take the time to have a quick snack and virtual pep break. At the start of the day. Don't judge me. Next, I sell George, the collector, a copy of the collector's edition of Snarl's I Tried album. I give Mike, who is very stoned, a copy of Pale's Ghost Bucket album to zone out to. And I sell another copy of the Minnie and Minx album to Mascot Dad as a birthday gift for Mascot Mom. Then I meet Rashida. Her dad died recently, and she's been trying to feel closer to him through his record collection. She wants to buy an album that he would have liked, which turns out to be, of all things, the Deadly Last Gasp of Freedom album by Snarl. Rashida is also surprised at first, but then she happily makes the connection and goes home to remember her dad. That night at the apple bed, Paul is still stressing out about the whole Repeater getting bought out situation, but then he runs away when he sees Morgan approaching. At the bar, Morgan asks me to pick her out a drink, because again, I can just do that here. Out at the lounge, my coworkers confront Morgan about the drama with Willow and James, and Morgan finally relents. She explains that while Becoming Violet was a huge band, it wasn't about chasing fame for her. It was about making music, and she felt that the bigger the band got, the farther they strayed from that goal. She tells us about how all the attention put too much pressure on a group of 4 kids, and it made things within the band complicated. She insists, however, that she is long over her breakup with James, and she hates that she's suddenly having to deal with him again. She assures us that James is all bark and no bite, and that he'll get bored and moved on to some other conquest soon. And with that, I get my 10th achievement. Still the same, complete side B. Day 9 begins with an oddly excited Paul and Abby, welcoming me to another episode of the Bullshit Investigators trademark. Basically, the two of them are tired of Morgan denying the seriousness of what's going on with the store, and so they've decided to start investigating the situation. Paul is a moderator for a Willow fan site and will use his connections there to investigate her, while Abby plans to use her, quote, terminally online friends in the punk community to investigate James. The pair want me to cover for them by running the shop while they investigate, but also there's an order to pack. Theo the Gamer Guy is back today, excitedly telling me that he finally beat that boss he'd been fighting in Ponko Night. He's equally excited because the sequel, Ponko Night 2, was just announced, and he's looking for the music from the trailer, or at least something similar. It takes some digging, but I settle on the new album by Shy Robot, called Continue, as it's clearly got a video game vibe to it. Thankfully, Theo is thrilled with my choice. Next, I served Kelsey, who was looking for a record that looks like the sun. Taylor wanted me to sell him CDs, which we do not sell. And Alicia came in wanting to vent about the ongoing scandal involving singer Mimi and her rumored ghostwriter and alleged lover, singer Robbie Dare. Alicia is angry, implying that she is actually the ghostwriter, and that Robbie Dare, quote, couldn't write himself out of bed. She thinks. She's never actually listened to his music before, so she decides to give him money by buying one of his albums for some reason. The wildness continued as a young mystery shopper wearing a mask shaped like a familiar game console came in, looking for a copy of his album. He doesn't want to tell me his name, though, because he doesn't want to draw any attention to himself. As the day wraps up, I check in with our intrepid BS investigators. Abby found out that James is the son of a corporate lawyer and got into music because he wanted to be the complete opposite of his dad. It's basically a whole he became what he hated type of situation. Paul, on the other hand, found nothing. Well, nothing except the rumors that he himself started years ago. He vows to keep investigating, though, creatively. Day 10 was a special day at Repeater because it was Roberta D Day, celebrating her weird, not-at-all cash-grabby quadruple album release. T is really excited to open the shop, which is not like her, and she reveals that she's a huge fan of Roberta D. Not only will the store be full of Roberta D merch and Roberta D fans, who T calls her people, but Roberta D herself will be at the store. Abby sees the event as a chance to hype up Girl Junk, while T is hopeful that she can meet Roberta and convince her to work with her on making some music. As they head out to the floor, Abby asks me to set up a Roberta D promo piece that had been missed. Finishing the piece gets me the achievement for everything in its right place, complete all sorting puzzles. As I open the shop for the day, I am struck by the presence of Roberta D. Literally everywhere. We only have her records in stock, including all of the alternate and definitely not cash-grabby versions. There are horrifying cutouts of Roberta by the front door. It's overwhelming. My first customer is Will, who is a Roberta D newbie and is looking to listen to any collaborations she's done. He's clearly a Shy Robot fan, so the album featuring a Shy Robot collab he gets. Next up is Roz, the Roberta D fan. She's looking for a Roberta song that she heard for the first time at a party. She can't really tell me anything beyond the fact that the song makes her feel like geometric shapes are colliding in her brain. I take a wild guess and am somehow correct. Kaz has returned to the store with yet another garbled record order. This time for a Roberta D album his cousin says is called Go Romantic. I'm a bit puzzled by this one, as the closest I can find is the Romantique album, which doesn't feel quite right. I go for it anyways, and it was not right. Next, I met with Mrs. Ralph and her husband, Mr. Ralph. She claims that Roberta D is one of their dearest, oldest friends, and that they went to university together. She claims that she and her husband want to prove how loyal and devoted they are to Roberta, you know, their friend, and that buying a copy of the album Roberta wrote while at university will somehow do that. Well, good luck, I guess. Isabella is next, raving about how Roberta D has, quote, artistic principles, built like a hard exoskeleton, a soft creative underbelly, sounds that claw, grip, and clamp your ears, and that, quote, all possibilities are available to her, whether they be land or sea. It's the Crab album. She wants the Crab album. My next customer is a mysterious person named Onulus, and yes, I did have to look up how to pronounce that, and yes, I did almost certainly still manage to butcher it. Onulus wants me to figure out who they are and find the Roberta D album with a goblin inside it. Okay. In a slightly less cryptic request, June here wants my help figuring out which of the 4 new Roberta D albums to get for her new boyfriend. I just need to make sure it has nothing to do with any of her boyfriend's phobias: outer space, demons, or icebergs. And also, I assume, demon icebergs from outer space. Suddenly, Abby whispers that she needs my help. She thinks T is too intimidated by Roberta D to walk up and say hello, so she asks me to do the introductions. So I do. I think it went well. T's a little upset afterwards, as she's embarrassed that she told Roberta that her new albums suck. We talk about how being a fan of someone is a weird experience, because hell yes it is, and that leads into T sharing that she feels like she experiences the world differently from those around her, and that she struggles with that sometimes. Girl, I feel you. I'll be over here crying and autistic if you need me. It ends up all good in the end, and we head home. Day 11 begins with Hank, acting nervous and then deflecting with a zine. He eventually starts to tell me that our sales numbers don't look good, but Morgan interrupts him to announce that our basement is now open. Hank says customers will think they're being sent down there to be murdered, and then he goes to check? He returns in shock because the basement now contains Becoming Violent records, something Morgan had vowed to never sell. Hank points out that the records are worth serious money, to which Morgan responds, that's the point. Well, before we open up, I check out the basement, and sure enough, there are 3 Becoming Violent albums there, alongside my newest achievement, Behind Closed Doors, Enter the Storage Room. I take a quick look at the albums, and then it's time to get to work. Tony is back, and of course today he wants our cheapest record from the basement. Lewis wants the newest Jarhead album, and Paul pops in looking for some ideas for the newest zine he's working on. He wants to use it to help crowdfund to keep Repeater open, but he's stuck on how the cover should look. I tell him to check out the basement being open, and he kind of loses his mind. Paul wants to buy a Becoming Violet record with his staff discount, but apparently we don't have a staff discount. Anyways, it's time to make a cursed zine cover. Rashida's back, and this time she wants to add an album of her own to her dad's record collection. She says she likes the rappers Easy Circle and Little Nitro, and while we don't have either of their records in stock, we do have the new RXX album, which features collabs with both artists. Rashida is happy with my pick, and she begins to talk more about losing her father, when Winston appears and politely interjects. He says that he overheard us talking, and that he has found that talking about a lost loved one, his husband Bradley in his case, can help with healing. He offers to take Rashida out for coffee one day so she can share memories of her father. She thinks that's a lovely idea, and they exchange numbers. After Rashida leaves, Winston tells me that it would have been his and Bradley's 40th anniversary this week. To celebrate, he wants to pick up a record that was popular 40 years ago as a way of remembering that time. And it just so happens we have a 40-year-old record newly in stock. At the end of the day, Hank's a bit emotional. He's happy to see that Morgan really does care about the store, going as far as to even reverse her ban on the Becoming Violet records. Still, Hank admits that he's been struggling with the uncertainty of everything, and then says some painfully relatable things about trying to find what you're supposed to be doing in life. He reiterates that the only person who decide when to give up should be you, and we close up shop for the day. Day 12 opens with a return visit from Isabella the artist, who wants some ambient music to make art to. Di the gig goer is looking for a copy of the Brick Ego album to listen to before the big Brick Ego gig. And then it's time for my next wax pack encounter, this time with the one and only MC Chisel. He doesn't give me much to go on, only asking for the record of the rapper who knows how to... something. I work my way through our limited rap collection before finally settling on the new Nia Pixel album. I end up being correct, but nothing else happens. Nothing wax pack related is even mentioned. Am I doing something wrong? Anyways, next I am lightly accosted by John the Grumpy Punk. He complains about the colors in the store being too bright, and then asks me for something that, quote, bleeds old school punk. I check the basement, and then pick out the Dad's Socks EP by Still Going, which John seems to appreciate. Then I meet... the Gelk Man? He's an influencer. He wants the song behind the newest TikTok dance craze. Okay. That night, we head to the Apple Bed for the Big Girl Junk show. Wait, Willow is here! She chats with Pat and reveals that Paul had written to her begging for her and James to not buy Repeater records. Except Willow isn't trying to buy Repeater. James is trying to buy it, and he went behind Willow's back, with help from her manager, to do it. This, among other things, is causing Willow to question her relationship with James. Pat suggests that Willow tries talking to Morgan about everything, and Willow might think about it. Next we come upon Abby panicking. Girl Junk's bassist is sick and Abby has to cancel the show, but she hasn't yet. Why? Because Abby can play bass, which means she can fill in, but she's understandably scared. And besides, she doesn't have a bass to play. Hey, to the rescue! After buying Abby a ridiculous drink to calm her nerves, Pat calls me over for a second. He reveals that the amp shorting out at Hank's show was due to bad wiring, and Pat hasn't had a chance to get it fixed yet. He asked me to man the soundboard and lights for Girl Junk's show, which leads to a surprisingly nerve-wracking minigame.
Yeah, I'm more than a pretty face. Please understand. I don't need you to hold my hand and help me figure out what's going on. Please understand. Don't need you. Don't touch my hand. I'm well aware of what's been going on. I understand.
After the show, everyone is pumped, especially Abby. There's talk of Repeater needing to stay open, so there's a place to sell Abby's music, to which we all raise a hopeful glass. Which also marks the next achievement, 8 days a week, complete side C. We begin day 13 with a whole lot of very noisy roadwork right outside the store. Awesome. Inside, Paul tries to convince Morgan to sell Willow records alongside the Becoming Violet albums as a way to boost profits even more, but Morgan refuses to entertain the idea and flees into the store. I peruse our newest editions while having a healthy snack, and then open the store. Nathan wants the Claudia album, Mascot Dad and his daughter Lyra are in search of a football chant to play at Lyra's game, George the Collector wants more female representation in his collection, and oh, James is back. Hooray. James grandstands for a while, and while Morgan seems mostly unfazed by his BS, she suddenly seems defeated once he leaves, which is concerning. Day 14 opens with... wait, the shutters won't open. Paul and T try to get in through the staff entrance, but the locks have apparently been changed. Paul tries calling Morgan, but she isn't answering. At a loss of what to do, we take the day off, I guess? I go home and take a nap, apparently, because I then have the most fever dream of all fever dreams. Repeater Records has been bought out by James and his press play crap, and my 15th day working there is also my first day as a cog in the art-stealing, earth-destroying, brain-melting machine. It is a very uncomfortable piece of gameplay, but also an excellent shot at the capitalistic hellscape the AI bros want us all to buy into. I mean, why use brain when computer do think? The nightmare ends with Morgan at the counter, lamenting the loss of her relationship with her sister and wondering if there's a way to show her she still cares. I'd say the nightmare was over, but now we have another Clive interview to sit through. Tonight he's talking with Mimi, discussing her ghostwriting controversy. She also tries to refute the rumors that she's dating Robbie Dare, but, well... Back to reality, and the store is unlocked. Everyone is here, and Morgan explains that in a moment of weakness, she thought it might be fair to all of us if she stopped fighting for the store and let us all make a clean break. However, everyone was so concerned about her sudden disappearance that it snapped her out of it, and we're back in business. She apologizes to everyone and thanks us for checking in on her. Paul then suggests the one thing we haven't tried, a fundraising concert for Repeater Records. The Becoming Violet albums have been flying off the shelves, and Paul suggests that maybe the fundraiser could feature a one-off Becoming Violet reunion show. A reunion with Morgan and Pat, at least. After some prodding, Morgan agrees, and we head out to open the store and sell as many records as we can. Kaz starts us off with the latest mumbled order from his cousin, the letter B, and then Sun King at the end. Vinny Spoon, a promoter and Wax Pack member, comes in looking for a trashy indie rock band that's on a rom-com soundtrack. I find it for him, and just like last time, nothing Wax Pack related happens. I'm definitely doing something wrong. Chloe's back, and this time she's brought her brother Marco and her dad Eduardo. This means I have 3 albums to find. A new punk album for Chloe, a new twisted rap album for Marco, and a recent criminally loud album for Eduardo. June is up next, and this time she's looking for something for herself rather than her boyfriend. She wants the most famous Willow album we've got. You can have the most famous Becoming Violet album instead. As a treat. Winston and Rashida have come to visit after their coffee date, expressing their relief that the store is still open. Rashida has to go, but Winston says to look for an album recommended by Rashida's boyfriend, Ryan. An album with a robot on the front, with lyrics that might make Winston blush. When the day is done, we all head over to the apple bed to pitch the idea of a Becoming Violet reunion to Pat. Thankfully, he's all in, and then to his surprise, Willow appears, needing an ear, which Pat is happy to lend. Willow confirms that her relationship with James is at a breaking point and says she doesn't know what to do. Pat again suggests talking to Morgan, but Willow is afraid to find out what Morgan's reaction to that would be. Over at the bar, Pat shares that he wants the reunion to go well, as Morgan has blamed herself for the band's demise for way too long. Paul then joins us, and asks me, not the bartender right in front of him, to find him a drink that mixes it up but with no citrus flavors. I struggle a bit, because I'm a record store employee, not a bartender, before buying him a no waiting for my saz, which was evidently just a big fat no in and of itself. We end the day with Paul handing out tasks for putting together the fundraiser, and we gain our 14th achievement, Hero of the Day, complete side D. We're halfway there! Day 17 starts with an unexpected announcement. We now have an expanded second floor, and Morgan renovated it herself to save money. And now we can feature local artists there, which includes Girl Junk. Before we open for the day, I of course need to go check out our new expansion, and it's pretty cool. Not only are we selling Girl Junk's EP up there, but also the EP from Hank's band, Dunnies, and Becoming Violet now has a prominent place in the store rather than being buried in the basement. Exploring also gives us another achievement. Walk the floor, visit every room in the store. After checking out the upgraded upstairs, I checked the basement to see what's replaced Becoming Violet down there. And I'm sorry, there's a Willow album here? I mean, it's in a different looking box than everything else, but still! After that surprising discovery, things take a turn, as an obviously heartbroken Allie appears at the counter. She reveals that she and Patry have broken up, and that she needs a record that will make her ache with every breath. After hunting around for a bit, I settle on the Willow album. As is described in the accompanying review, it's aching, sublime, and painfully intimate. Allie does not like my suggestion. Billy is next, excited that both the Bad Toes albums are in the store side by side, and that the band has been signed to the new indie record label spearheaded by the band's sister. He asks for copies of the other local bands on the new label, and I happily oblige. Next, Margarita wants a record for her son's birthday. Daisy wants an album for her husband by an obscure band signed to that new indie label with the name of a body cart on the cover. And then to my great surprise, Mascot Dad arrives. But now he's just Dad! He's come to offer his help with the fundraiser for Repeater by wearing any of his mascot costumes to help us advertise. He explains that he wants to help foster a sense of community, whether that be through the local record store or through all of his daughter's sports teams. It's very sweet. That wholesome moment is quickly followed by more heartbreak, however, when Patry walks in, just as crushed as Allie over their breakup. Patry also wants music to cry to, asking for something familiar with an inextricable feeling of loss hanging over it. Surely, I think, surely, this is who wants the Willow record. It is not. After we close up, Abby reveals that she also saw the Willow records downstairs and figures that Morgan must have put them there. Abby wants to pull the records out of the basement and put them front and center, but Mateo urges caution, worried that the albums might upset Morgan if she put them there by mistake. Abby relents and we head home. The next day opens with Paul expressing his concern about trying to pull off the fundraiser when he's never done anything like it before, and lets it slip that he's worried that a Becoming Violet reunion with only Morgan and Pat may not be enough to get people in the door. T is rather offended by this, and Paul clarifies that he just thought a supporting act might help. I asked T if she can talk to Roberta D, which somehow gets T to let it slip that she and Roberta are dating?
Boy, that escalated quickly.
T flees out the staff room door with Paul close behind and, wait for me! The day begins with delivery man Zach, who, as it turns out, is the mumbly cousin of delivery man Kaz. He's also a member of the Wax Pack, which is an interesting development. He asks for an album called Glass Tense, which is, of course, the album called Tense Glass, and once again, there are no Wax Pack shenanigans. Huh. And Dan is here again. Ew! He's mad that there are flyers for the fundraiser taped to the side of the building. Oh, and that someone wrote, "Fuck landlords" on them. Anyways, he throws a fit and he leaves. The Mimi superfan is back, looking for the hit new Mimi single, which is on the soundtrack for a new movie. I check my phone real quick and then decide to pop a new song on the jukebox via the Suffering Jukebox app. This nets me the next achievement, on repeat, play multiple tracks on the jukebox. I then grab the soundtrack to Glorf, the movie, for the Mimi superfan and send her on her way. Cheapskate Tony is back again, but this time with a very unorthodox request. He wants to buy the most expensive record we have to help raise funds for the store. I check Phonogram and see that there are 2 back-to-back posts about overpriced records, the Glorf soundtrack and the collector's edition of the Snarl I Tried remaster. And despite having just sold a copy of the Glorf soundtrack, yeah, I have no idea how much it sold for. I take a guess on the Snarl record, and I'm right somehow. Thanks, Cheapskate Tony. Chloe is next, and she lets me know that she doesn't have any money for new music because she just bought a guitar and has started a band called Scarlet Starlet. She tells me that Repeater isn't allowed to close because she wants to be able to sell her own music in here someday. Aw. Chip's back. He complains that he's hemorrhaging votes among the woke wallflowers, so he needs to buy an album that proves that he's down with the kids. Again. He gets the new Bad Toast record. Enjoy. So, Willow is here? She's looking for Morgan, so Paul runs off to call her. I offer to find something for Willow, but she doubts that I can surprise her. Ta-da! Just then Morgan arrives, and while things start out tense, the sisters realize that they both always loved and missed each other, but were too afraid to break the silence. That's watering it down, but it's too weepy to spoil here. They make up for all intents and purposes, and then Morgan asks Willow to join the Becoming Violet reunion at the fundraiser. She's hesitant, but throws caution to the wind and says yes. And just like that, we're back on live with Clive, this time with Morgan and Willow, discussing the Becoming Violet reunion. While Willow is still comfortable giving live interviews, Morgan, struggles a bit. An audience member asks if they're just getting back together for the money, and Morgan goes off on them, saying that yeah, they need the money to save the store. Support independent businesses, you jackasses. And that gets us another achievement, Monster Mash. Watch all Monster Music interviews. Day 19 starts with Paul freaking out about the Clive interview, as he says Morgan's spouting off has made our fundraiser go viral. Morgan's embarrassed, but Paul tells her to own it. Then he asks for my help designing a new poster for the show now that Willow has signed on. My first customer of the day is Teddy Tom, a soft-spoken retired musician, and it turns out that he's Chip's opponent running for MP. He's been going around the community, meeting people and talking to them one-on-one. He requests a record that fires him up like when he was younger. And as it turns out, we have the best of collection of Teddy's own music in stock. Teddy is delighted and says this gave him just the boost he needed. Abby pops in to say hi and to share some big news. Girl Junk's going on tour with Brick Dog. She says they want her to join them, but she's decided to go after her own opportunities, including opening for Becoming Violet at the fundraiser. What is happening? Winston is back, with Rashida, and Rashida's boyfriend Ryan. Winston introduces me to Ryan as my friend I was telling you about, which, aww. The trio go on to talk about how much the store has come to mean to them, and say that they've told everybody they can about the fundraiser. To further help the store, Winston wants to buy himself, Rashida, and Ryan each a record. Winston wants a rare record that we're, quote, finally selling. Rashida wants an old album that a band has reunited to celebrate. And Ryan wants a rap album put out by Grip Records. Happy with their purchases, Winston, Rashida, and Ryan thank me for how much I've helped them and promise that they won't let Repeater down. Allie and Patry! Together! The pair confirm that they're back together, and they say they want an album that will make them laugh, with Allie referencing a comedian that they saw last night. She doesn't give me a name, but a post on Phonogram informs me that his name is Scott Bush. Bush? Boucher? Scott B. His name is Scott B, and he's in Yakko Chester. On their way out, Patry thanks me for creating a space where magic can happen. Aww. My next customer is a mystery. A familiar-looking mystery. She's looking for, quote, a certain album that caused a lot of embarrassment, and she needs to remove all copies of it, even if she has to buy them all herself. You know, for reasons. I give it to her, and in return she presents me with a check for our fundraiser because, quote, that way we can agree I was never here. Sure thing. Not long after that, I'm greeted by Linny Hirsch, the journalist. She remarks that the store looks different since she last saw it, and clarifies that she used to live in the area, and Repeater is where she fell in love with music. Morgan comes over, and it turns out the pair are old friends. Lenny states that with James Grant buying out Walking the Cow, yeah, that asshole's taking that over too, she's starting a new audience-supported magazine called Hammer I Miss You, and her first story will be about the fundraiser. Morgan congratulates her, then teases her about having, quote, another reason for stopping by. Turns out, Linny and Hank dated years ago, and Linny's still got a thing for him, and it sounds like the feeling might be mutual. Morgan tells me to help Linny out while she goes and gets Hank's number. Well, okay then. Linny asks for the Denise album because she didn't even realize that was Hank's band. She checks out, takes Hank's number from Morgan, and tells us she'll see us at the fundraiser tomorrow night. Oh my god, it's tomorrow? Clive is here, and wait, what the fuck is Clive doing here? He asks a bunch of insulting questions, I essentially tell him to buy something or get out, and he asks for the Gareth Kringle album. Jerk. As we wrap up the day, Paul and Morgan are full of nerves and hopeful anticipation. Me too. And suddenly, here we are at the alphabet. It's go time! Paul and I are chatting about the show and the size of the crowd when suddenly Pat comes over and asks us if we've seen either Morgan or Willow because they missed soundcheck. Pat says he'll try calling them again. Then Abby joins us, freaking out about her decision to not go on tour with Girl Junk. Or more specifically, her decision to open for Becoming Violet as a solo act. She's panicking. Paul tells her how amazing and radiant she is, and that she needs to get her shit together. Abby's still panicking, and Hank comes over to offer a kind word, by quoting what sounds like a children's movie? Well, whatever, because it works, and Abby calms down and goes to get ready. Then Pat's back. He still can't locate Morgan and Willow. Now it's Hank's turn to panic, going as far as to offer to put on a wig and pretend to be Morgan. Instead, it's decided that Abby will just start her set as the crowd is starting to get restless. And she kills it, as expected. Unfortunately, my audio was muted during this recording session, but she kills it, I promise. Morgan and Willow get to the venue just in time to catch the end of Abby's set and explain that they're late because they had, quote, an unexpected house call. We then flash back to Morgan at the store, trying to find her keys to close up. And oh boy, James is here. The two snipe at each other a bit, and then James offers to pay Morgan if she doesn't play the reunion. Oh, and also still gives him the store. Morgan tells him off, James keeps being a dick, and then Willow intervenes. She tells James that she's had enough, implying that their relationship is over. She also reveals that she fired her manager and never signed the contract regarding the whole press play thing, so that's over too. James spits and sputters and storms out. Willow and Morgan reiterate their commitment to both the show and their relationship, and we fade to black. And are promptly greeted by Hank in his Morgan wig, which may or may not be the bottom of a mop. So, time for the show? We watch Becoming Violet's reunion, and it's accompanied by a minigame where I have to choose the lyrics. It was kind of cool, but I also kind of felt like I was intruding, like I was ruining the music or something. Still, the scene was very touching, and it made for a fitting end to the story. Oh, and then I got to design the cover of the bootleg that he recorded. As I finish up, I'm rewarded with a double achievement. Just Another Day in Paradise, complete side E, and the show must go on, reach the end of the story. And now we get a final report from Clive, essentially providing us with the story's epilogue. The fundraiser was a success and Repeater Records was saved, but James is, well, he's not doing so good, having lost both the store and his wife. Clive is, of course, disappointed by the happy ending for Repeater. He waxes poetic about how he's sure the happy ending won't last because the music industry thrives on drama. But he's interrupted by Chloe of all people. She tells him that he's wrong and the music isn't about drama and negativity but about connection and joy. She cuts him off again and we get a cute credit sequence with all of the devs drawn as NPCs. Now that I'd completed my first playthrough of the game, it was time to start hunting for my final 9 achievements. I started a new game in Customer is Always Right mode, as I'd seen in recent patch notes that one of the achievements was easier to get in that mode. I also decided that, while it wasn't an official achievement, I wanted to make sure to figure out all the wax pack stuff on this playthrough. I wasn't sure why I just stopped receiving clues, so I wanted to make sure to pay better attention this time around. I loaded in and started to play, taking the opportunity to fix any poor music recommendations I might have made in my previous playthrough. I knew that there were a couple of achievements related to the arcade minigame Diggy Doggo, so early on I made a stop at the arcade machine to chip away at it. Because I'd played most of my original playthrough with my mouse, and because I could have sworn I had tried to play the minigame on controller and couldn't, my first many attempts were done on mouse and keyboard. This involved moving my character around with WASD, something I am terrible at, so for quite a few of my attempts at playing the minigame, things were painful. After giving up on that, I made Hank a poster. And between picking out records for people, I made sure to take my time to play with my little legally distinct Tamagotchi, and sure enough, I got my first secret achievement, Pet Cemetery. Be attentive to your virtual pet. Billy came in, and in an effort to get the achievement where you make a customer wait too long, I decided to give Diggy Doggo another go. It was still painful. But hey, I still got an achievement. Live and let die. Die 10 times in Diggy Doggo. So that's something. Chloe came in looking for the new Sister record, and I purposely recommended her the album she was actually looking for rather than the correct choice of the first album. She seemed unsure, so I told her I'd look for another record, and then I gave her the same one again, netting me the achievement Baby One More Time, offer a rejected record twice. When Snobby Clarissa came in, I decided that she would be the one who would have to wait for too long. And so... After a painfully long 10 minutes, I got my second secret achievement. Waiting for the sun. Make a customer wait too long. Next, I bought myself a bunch of chocolate bars and ate them all, earning me another secret achievement. Yummy, 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 eat 10 chocolate bars. The next secret achievement, Book of Days, read a total of 50,000 words, I got when I wasn't recording. This footage is from when I hit record in a panic right after the achievement popped up. I hadn't been recording because I thought the words had to be inside reading materials in the game, like the newsletter or the zines. Turns out all the text in the game counts, so keep that in mind if the 50,000 number sounds insane. Over the course of this playthrough, I made sure to interact with every phonogram post I saw, something I somehow had no idea you could do the first time around. This eventually got me the 5th and final secret achievement, Sing Sing Sing, interact multiple times on phonogram. I also got to the part of the game where Priya, the second Wax Pack member, comes in. I got her the record she wanted and again looked at the clue found inside it. Still had no idea what it meant. It wasn't until I was on my way to bed that night that I realized the code on the note was referencing the emoji keypad on the cash register. For some reason, my dumbass thought it was referencing a combination block or something. So the next day I started another new playthrough specifically to get back to Priya's appearance and properly use the clue. I got there, double-checked the clue, and typed it onto her receipt. And finally, success. Priya rewarded me with the milk bottle key. I immediately headed into the storage room and used the key on the box with a milk bottle on it. I was presented with another VHS tape to put in the VCR. This time it was an odd music video for Sour Milk by Denise. Yeah. Next, I made it to Wax Pack member MC Chisel, who of course wanted the new Nia Pixa album. And you know, there's 4 giant emojis right there. I'm an idiot. Anyways, MC Chisel responds to his receipt by giving me the cottage key. This opens the door with a cottage on it, revealing another bootleg-style video of a nameless band playing a show. Vinny Spoon is my next Wax Pack member, and it doesn't matter what he wants because his emoji code is right on his sweater. I get him his record anyways, because I am nothing if not an exemplary employee, and I type his code into the receipt. I'm rewarded with a mask key and opening the mask box, revealing a Maria Estrella live performance? Mom, come pick me up, I'm scared. Finally, I meet Zach again. I grab the 10th Class album for him, and sure enough, 4 emojis on the back. I'm given the Slippers key, I open the Slippers box, and there's a video of the Waxhead's composer, Gina Lachlan, performing the acoustic version of the game's main menu theme. So there was at least one wholesome video in the storage room. Finally, there were just 2 official achievements left. One to beat the Diggy Doggo game, and then one for getting all of the achievements. The Diggy Doggo achievement was pure pain. I initially continued suffering through playing with mouse and keyboard, but eventually I decided to try playing with the controller again, and this time it worked and was far easier. It still took me this many tries though, on top of what I'd already done. And then finally, I had earned the last 2 achievements. Diggy Diggy Hole, complete Diggy Doggo, and Greatest Hits, unlock all achievements in the game. And just like that, I had officially completed 100% of Waxheads. This is the first Steam game I've ever 100%ed, believe it or not, and I think it was a good way to start. The game is mostly chill, excluding Diggy Doggo, and I really enjoyed the depth of the story and characters. I would definitely recommend Waxheads if you're a music fan who's looking for a narrative story game with mostly chill puzzle elements, except for Diggy Doggo. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave it a like or a comment or both. Please also consider subscribing and sharing the video with any fellow music-loving cozy gamers. And I will see you in the next one.